morning, everyone. We've got everyone joining in, so we're going to get going here. Thank you again for joining us here on the Disruptor Connection. Just a couple reminders that this is recorded today, so if you missed something that Paula and I talk about or go, oh, I want to know about that, it will be on our YouTube channel for the Disruptor League, along with some of our previous episodes as well. This morning, the chat function is there. But if you really would like to ask questions of Paula or myself during this, also use the Q&A section. I monitor all of it as much as I can, unless I get completely wrapped up in my conversation, which happens a lot in this. As well, just know that we'll be dropping some links in and have some cool things to share with you today as we jump in. So I am so excited to be a part of this day with a very dear friend who has, wow, we've only known each other a year, Paula, but it was an amazing journey. Coming to know you through some of our previous work, and then how you have just jumped in with all of the work that we do at Mofi and the Disruptor Connection, and with our dear friend Shawn Slavinsky. I'm not going to take time and read the big formal bio about you because we're just going to chat today, and I'll let you share about it. But Paula, thank you for joining us here on the Disruptor Connection today.
Pleasure.
Yeah, so Paula, I want you to share a little bit about your journey that got you to become CEO of Susan G. Komen. And then after you share that little bit, we're going to share with those that are on here an amazing project that I learned this week that you sent over to our friend Shawn and I. And I have to tell you, it was in an amazing moment. I was out on the West Coast in Vegas with another non-for-profit we do work with, and had frankly just finished a massage and just picked it up and clicked on the text and listened to what you sent. And it was very moving and very emotional. But Paula, tell us a little bit about that, your journey to Susan G. Komen, and why you're so passionate about it.
Well, it's a circuitous route. First of all, I'm a breast cancer survivor, so I would never be sitting in this chair, nor probably have interest in sitting in this chair if I had not had that experience. So, there are silver linings from things that happen in your life, and there's probably many silver linings that are going to be unveiled from the times that we're in right now, although it may not feel like it. But I was diagnosed with breast cancer in 2007. My mom had died from metastatic breast cancer. My brother had prostate cancer, and he eventually passed from that. My sister had melanoma. She's okay. So it's been sort of a cornerstone of our world here of having to deal with cancer in our family. But my background is completely not in philanthropy. Never worked in philanthropy in my life before I stepped into this chair, which people might say, well, why the hell would they hire you who've never worked in philanthropy in your life? But I'll get to that. So as I was a retailer, probably most notably because of the bucket of crazy was my time at American Apparel. I was the CEO of American Apparel. I was also the president of BCBG, president of Laundry by Shelley Siegel, the president of group president over all the swimwear brands, most swimwear brands in the world, including Speedo. Had the opportunity to go with Michael Phelps to the Olympics in 2008. And then we were the ones that made him the promise that, hey, if you win 8 gold medals, we'll give you a check for $1 million, not ever thinking that would happen. But, the beauty of it is it did, and we were able to give him that check. So I actually handed him the check, which was great. I went into private equity. I bought companies for a while. So, I've had a really interesting past, really interesting work life. I did some consulting work for Kanye West and his fashion brands. So done a lot of interesting things. And I was the CEO of 7 for All Mankind jeans, and I went to I was getting an award for being one of the top female retailers in the country. And while I was giving an award, I gave my speech, my acceptance speech. And it was really more about, they wanted me to tie in empowerment and retail in the same sentence, which I really honestly got nothing. So I got up on stage, I gave my speech, and it was talking about being the most empowered when I was the least physically powerful when I was going through treatment for breast cancer, because you have to learn a new skill, and it's a form of grace to be able to accept support. I'm lucky I had it. I had a great family, I had great health care, even taking support from your children and having them help you, really difficult, especially for someone who's used to being large and in charge. And so when I sat down after giving my speech, a friend of mine had said to me, hey, look, while you were up speaking, I got an email from a friend of mine who's a recruiter in Dallas, and they're looking for someone to become the CEO, a new CEO of Susan G. Komen. And would you ever be interested in that? And I thought, yes, I would. And it literally took me about 1 second to make that answer. And, that was Thursday. Friday, I talked with my husband about it. And Monday, I quit my job, because you can't be a publicly traded CEO and be in a position where you're, even thinking about taking another job, because it's not fair to that organization. But I didn't even have an interview. And I went through a whole series of interviews. And I basically told the board, look, if you find I think I'd be awesome at this job, even though I've never done anything in philanthropy before. But if you find someone that you think would be better, you need to hire them, because this is so important for my family and, my daughters to not ever have to worry about breast cancer. So I've been here for 3 years, best career move I ever made, not without its bumps. Certainly having to learn like a whole new vernacular and basically skill set. But, it's amazing how transferable things are if you have the basics. So, you got to be bold. And this whole program is about being a disruptor. And I think I fall squarely into that category.
Yeah, I mean, there's no question, Paula, that you are a disruptor. And that's what I love about you and love what you have done. And when the fortunate times we were able to visit the office in Dallas, and then watching you, and this whole concept, because again, you were not ever in philanthropy, you were not in the nonprofit world, and now you are, CEO of probably one of the biggest 501c3s in our country, and the amount of people that are involved. And we keep talking about the whole concept, even in this episode, is rethinking how a nonprofit should look, feel, function, and behave. And then
behave. Nobody behave.
Yeah, well, that's right. That's right. And then bucking these traditional structures of non-for-profit models. Talk a little bit about your mindset around that, and your headsets around how you've looked at the last 3 years and what you've done for the organization to move it on in such a powerful way.
Well, there's the last 3 years, and then there's the last 6 months, right? So you can't do one without the other, because in the last 3 years we made a lot of tactical progress. Honestly, using technology has been a very big part of moving forward, and I think it's interesting to come from a for-profit and go into a not-for-profit. And I think it's good for them too, because to look at things differently. You can't spend more than you make. You can't roll into your savings. You have to figure out new ways to raise money. You have to contain costs as much as you can, because you're stewards of donor dollars. And then you have to define what does community mean, right? Because we're working on all kinds of really interesting things. And I'm going to go back to the first 3 years and then the last 6 months, because we've made more big decisions in the last 6 months than we probably have in 15 years. And, most of them are going to be right, and some of them are going to miss the mark, but all of them have been thoughtful, right? So we use technology to figure out our donor base, right? Because we've been swimming and fishing in our same pool for a very long time without lead generation. And I'm, a retailer. So the it's kind of like e-commerce in a way, right? You have to talk to people in a way that they can hear. So it's bringing my skill set of that. And we worked on data analytics and figuring out, who our donors were and who cares about what. If you care about community or you care about research, and and talking to you about the fabulous programs and the things that we do that are meaningful to you and the way that you want to engage with Komen. So there's sort of three areas that we have. We're 360 degree. It's not easy to do everything we do. We're very complicated for not, we're a big organization in 501c3s, but from the size of like regular companies, we're a mid-sized company and we do a lot. So we have research because nothing's going to cure cancer other than research. And, our fingerprints have been all over every major breakthrough that's happened in the last like 30 years in breast cancer. The second part is community and defining community, because, this is sort of a disruptor tactic. Is Toledo, Ohio doesn't have to be your community. The community can be the community of breast cancer. Everyone lives somewhere, right? So where you live and what color you are should not determine whether you live. So we have an African American Health Equity Initiative far before this was, the thing to do, if you will. Because we've been living this for years, that Black women die more than white women by 40%. That's completely unacceptable. In some cities, it's up to 70 or 80%. So we have the whole community side. We have the social injustice side that we manage through. And then we also have the advocacy side, and a focus on that because, we built that up in the last couple of few years, because the advocacy side is, there's nothing really more powerful than a group of women in pink with pitchforks that are all on the same page. And I'm telling you, we've passed 10 Komen-led state bills for equality in healthcare, oral parity, depending on what your state needed. We also work at the federal level. In the last 12 months, we've passed those bills. So, when I say there's powers in numbers, there are powers in numbers, and there's nothing more there's no better convener than Komen, because we get people rallied around a cause like no other.
Yeah, and so you talked about a few things there, Paula, that I want to dive into, but and to those that are watching and listening right now, or who will watch and listen to this, I remember when you walked us through earlier this year, maybe the end of last year, the whole African American initiatives and the cities that you guys were tackling, and had built this initiative. And as we were working in Georgia with a friend of ours, that it was mind-blowing to me to understand the journey of many of you women that have walked through breast cancer, and how inadequate the health system is for it, and how powerful the community is. I would love for you to talk a little bit more about the power of community, and what does that community look like today? Because I again, going back to, I don't want to jump into the total last 6 months, but you've had to rethink, right, like 2020, everyone knows about, I have dear friends who run the Komen runs and the 3-day events, and all of a sudden, mid-March of this year, your world, which is also where you raise so many of your dollars, right, and all of that's gone. So
people don't want to be together with 5,000 or 6,000 or 20,000 or 80,000 of their best friends, right? So and I understand that completely. Nor do we want to put anyone at risk, because the very last right when the pandemic was beginning and we didn't have like a lot to know about it, we had our very last race or More Than Pink Walk that went through was the LA one, and I actually had a team in LA, and there were maybe 6,000 people there, and that was on March 2nd. And people were sort of slightly talking about it, not that much, but and had I known now, I would never have put anyone there. But it is what it is. We made it through that, and we have 60 affiliate networks that are their own 501c3s, their own individual 501c3s throughout the country. And, and the majority of the monies raised through race walks funds those affiliates. And now if you can't have race walks, or, we pivoted to virtual, and we're doing pretty well in the virtual world, but not anywhere near what you would do in, by having people in person. So we have made the decision to go into a single incorporation as opposed to a federated model, because there's duplication of efforts, right? And many of the smaller 501c3 affiliate models had their own marketing people, their own IT people, they had their own, all of these back end structures that you're going to stop making money, and who knows when it's coming back. Because you remember those conversations you had in your household on March, whatever day it was. For me, it was March 24th. Well, how long do you think this is going to last? It's going to if everyone would just stay home for 2 weeks, then it'll be over, and then we can get back to normal.
Yeah,
right?
2 weeks. That's all it was.
2 weeks. Or, I thought, well, maybe by July we can plan our, 30th anniversary for our wedding trip that we had planned, but none of that happened. Right. So at the end of the day, you have to continue, you have to live in the world you live in, and you have to plan for that, especially in my role as leading the organization. The last thing I wanted to do was leave all these communities. So, it's challenging because we're delivering mission differently. We are, we're only doing patient-centered services. If we only want to make sure that we are keeping people in treatment, that we are helping with patient navigation, that we are helping with treatment assistance program, which is cash, because so many people now are out of work, or they're underinsured, or they're uninsured. And can you imagine going through a breast cancer diagnosis right now during a pandemic and all of that? Our phones are ringing off the hook. There's so much need right now and so much less money coming in. So we had to cut expenses, which we did, which means headcount too, which we had to, that's miserable. And now we are in the process of becoming a single incorporation where we will stay in all of these communities, but we will not do it the same way that we had done it in the past. And that's painful. It's painful for the people that are out in our communities, that are working so hard for us, that may not have their jobs going forward. It's a massive change for the organization, and we're doing that all while we're, we're doing all of our day jobs. So, there's a lot of pivoting that had to go on, and everyone has to do it. And, again, you have to live in the world that you're actually living in.
Yeah, and you mean, Paula, you mean that that breast cancer didn't stop coming March 24th?
Well, this is for those of you that are out there that are female, or know anyone that's female that is listening. So that's pretty much every single one of you. Just about 50 to 80% down, depending on the statistics that you look at, of breast cancer diagnosis in the last 6 months. It does not mean that it hasn't, that it's not there. It just means people aren't going to get their screenings, and there's going to be a massive boom in breast cancer. And tell people, the reason that October came about and everything was pink and all of that was to remind people originally to get your mammograms. And now we have to do it again, because the hospital is one of the safest places that you can go to get your mammograms. You got to go, because otherwise, if there is a finding, you're putting your life in danger, especially if you feel something. This is really diabolical.
Yeah, and in case everyone didn't hear that correctly there, because I'm typing this into the thing, 50 to 80%.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Numbers are down, are down right now, Paula. But what you're saying is we're going to hit a boom sometime next year. We're going to see this whole, whenever, right? It may be that this boom cancer diagnosis is going to happen because people have quit. We secluded ourselves, which, right or wrong, we don't want to get into that, right? We secluded ourselves, but that also meant a lot of preventative healthcare measures that you should be doing isn't taking place.
You have to do it, because breast cancer spreads, right? Any kind of cancer spreads. It doesn't just stop magically. And if you don't get treatment, then, you're putting your life at risk. And, I get that no one wants to get COVID, but the hospitals have figured out now, or the clinics have figured out now how to do this safely. You got to go.
Yeah. And I remember, for those of you that listen to the podcast, Paula was in season 1 with us. on the Combustion Chronicles, and she said on that, cancer isn't canceled just because of COVID. Right? Like that day in March, all of a
I wish
sudden,
that happened. That would be
yeah,
magical.
yeah, yeah, right. And it would make your job a whole lot easier. You could take 6 months and figure stuff out, right? And so that's powerful. And Paul, I know, and really want to talk about you. You said, so what you focused on, and looking at keeping everything mission relevant right now in this rapidly changing world. You know, we live in composed of split-second decisions and attention spans and bombardment of information and advertising. And with your retail background, how are you keeping mission relevant and specific with your focus to technology? Because that's really where it's got to be right now for Susan G. Komen, is you're not bringing the community together every week or wherever, right? So you're having to use technology. How are you doing that?
Okay, well, we sort of modeled this. We know that when patients have patient navigation, which, and I'll talk about that, what that is in just a second, they do better and they stay in treatment. I have, on average, when you are when you have a breast cancer diagnosis, you have between 11 and 14 doctors, right? It's a bitch. It's a bitch to keep up with who does what, and you're feeling like crap, and you're in treatment, and all of these things are going on around you, and I can't remember 3/4 of my doctors, and that may be because of chemo brain or not, but I remember I walked into Huntington Hospital here in Pasadena the very after my diagnosis to start my whirlwind of, these are going to be your doctors, and this is what they're going to do, and this is all how they interact together. And it was so daunting from someone who's educated and who has good health insurance and speaks the language and all of those things. And I thought, oh my God, how am I ever going to do this? And then I met Susan, and Susan was my patient navigator. And I can tell you, she's emblazoned in my memory. She had dark hair to here. She was wearing a black shirt with pink flowers on it. And I thought, I followed Susan like a puppy. And what we're doing is emulating what that experience is. We're laying down tracks right now to create the product of an app that is a patient navigation app. And it's sort of like telemed, so that you can, if you have a diagnosis, that you can get your Susan on the phone. You can take her with you into your doctor's appointments. You can, where she's going to be your thought partner in this and figuring out what the best way for you to go forward is. And, I can also tell you, when you go into a doctor's office and they start to tell you all the chemotherapy medicine that they can give you, and I'll never forget, I was with two of my girlfriends because, I was trying to understand it all, and I made them come with me. And when they gave me all my chemo medicine, and they said, okay, because the reason they give it to you is so that you stop throwing up and don't have, issues, right? And then the first thing that it says is that when you take this medicine, it could make you throw up or have, and I'm like, well, okay, somebody help me out here. You don't even get to hear what goes on because you're just so absorbed in some little fact or some little thing that you heard. So for us to be able to give that gift to people that are going through treatment is massive. And you could be in rural Oklahoma, or you could be in New York City or LA, right? And it still is beneficial to you. So we have that that we are building right now. And then we also have a patient registry where we're doing Komen-led research projects that are where women can give their genetic and their genomic information, because we're a trust broker, right? And there's that information out there, but it exists in silos. So if it exists at different medical facilities or at educational institutions, it's only getting to their scientists. And we have the top scientists in the world, all over the world, that work with Komen. So if we can open up that, and we might be able to crack the code.
Yeah, Paula, it's the patient navigation piece. First off, like, I remember when you sit down and was sharing your vision of that, and then again, obviously not ever walking through that journey, and the amount of doctors that you have to deal with. And what I always want to remind people is what you just said, Paula. You were well educated,
Yeah.
You're a brilliant woman. You were CEO of a major organization. You had enough, like, let's be real, right? You had financial resources.
I
You
had,
could pay for the best doctors in the world. You could get the best treatment, but yet that statement that you just said, that I walked behind Susan like a puppy dog, right? Like, here you are, strong woman. Like, people looked up to you all and still
woman.
do, right? Right? Strong woman. I didn't realize it when I said it, right? Strong woman. You, but you felt like, I don't know that I can make it through this. What am I going to do? Like, all of a sudden, all that strength, you just feel like, so, we've been, our friend Sean Svinsky and I have been championing this with you and wanting to make everything happen. And our passion in our company around experience, that if we can put this tool into every woman's hand, that has ever diagnosed this day forward breast cancer, to have their Susan, or to have their Beth, or to have their Nancy Wright, at their disposal, why would we not do that?
Yeah.
Um,
And
yeah.
80% of treatments are outside of major rural area or major metropolitan areas. They're in rural areas. And you may have, you're not at a teaching hospital, right? You may have like a UCLA, like I went to, you may have one oncologist that deals with every single kind of cancer. And that's mind numbing to think of, because, just the velocity of new information and new treatments that are happening right now, prior to COVID anyway, because a lot of this has stopped, is mind boggling, right? So there is hope out there. It is incredible, but you got to get people to the treatment that exists today. We could stop 30% of the deaths that happen for breast cancer just by getting people to the treatment that exists today, not making any major medical breakthroughs.
Yeah, I remember, Paula, when we brought you and your team and some of your, some very special women, to do a day and a half session. And one young lady who is here in my home state in Ohio, and she was sharing her journey, that, she had to travel an hour and a half, just to go get her treatment, right? And
1 years old, and she has metastatic breast cancer, right? Which just means it's incurable. And so she's going to be in treatment for probably ever. And
yeah,
so,
yeah,
and she has to drive an hour and a half. By the way, she has to drive an hour and a half to get a blood test, right? As opposed to, how about if we have your patient navigation app going and you go right down the street to the blood testing in your area, and they get the results and just talk you through it. I mean, telemed is gonna come on big and strong, which is great, because I think it's very helpful. But then there are times you need to be in person. But I think of how helpful that could be, right? Because again, small town USA, which is the majority of the towns in the USA, are where you may have to drive an hour and a half. I had to drive 5 minutes, and I was barfing along the way. It's miserable.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, and again, my ignorance before coming on this journey with you is even understanding, again, this young lady, you know, early 30s, that diagnosed with the cancer that is really incurable, right?
Incurable. Yes.
Incurable. We can't cure it. And then you talked a bit ago about research and your focus on research, and you've got this amazing, board, and a matter of fact, I was supposed to attend a dinner in your home in Dallas right when COVID hit, and I made the decision not to travel to meet many of these amazing researchers, and scientists. Um, it's You don't need this database that you're building and this research that you don't need hundreds of thousands of women to change that, right? And if I remember right,
Yeah.
you said to me one day, you're like, Shawn, if we could just get 10,000 women to give their information into this database, it could be life changing.
Yeah, it's statistically significant, right? But we need all kinds of women, right? Because many of the trials, the clinical trials that exist, don't take into consideration the African American population, don't have the right amount of women that represent the population. right? So for us, it's a huge thing to make sure that everything that we're doing is inclusive and has a broad swath of every type of woman that's out there, and not just women that look like me.
Yeah, and so for those again that are on here listening or are going to listen to this, they just need a broad range of women. Again, not hundreds of thousands, but enough. And I remember, Paula, it was, and the goal that you guys set when we first met you last year was to reduce breast cancer by 50%.
Yeah, by
right?
2026. And I will tell you, we're going to have to revamp our goal. It was hard to do before COVID. There's no way to, in my mind, where, COVID has adversely affected. We don't know how long people are going to stay out of diagnosed much later, and then the outcomes aren't as good.
Yeah. And so, Paula, we're going to help commit, as our organization, as I told you, and our friend Shawn has said to this, this revamping the goal, but making the mission happen. And so we're getting a little close to the end, and I don't want to lose sight of this. I want to give this some major space for you to talk about. But those of you that weren't on right when we started, 2 days ago, I was sitting actually after just having some relaxation time and finishing a massage. Paul had sent us a text of a new thing that Susan G. Komen the press release had just come out. And I sat and watched this, and it was incredibly emotional and incredibly moving. So I want to play a video, and then I want to talk about it, Paula, and then what we can do as next steps to help. So want to make sure I get everything right here, and hopefully give thumbs up that everyone can hear this when this happens. But here we go. Let's see.
Someday, pink will just be a color, not a ribbon to remember, a best friend or a mother. Someday, you won't have to put a wig on, and a baseball cap will just be a hat, not something to hide under, 'cause your hair is gone. Someday's coming any day. You gotta believe without seeing. You gotta keep going, keep breathing. When you face a day that feels like you're gonna break, lean on the ones that love you, the guardian angels above you, and think about where pink is just another color. Someday your time will be your own time. No waiting rooms or doctor's news that make you wanna cry. And someday we're gonna have a party. We'll pop pink balloons with people who know love can
Oh, still, I don't know how many times I've listened to it, and it's still
I'm right there with
pretty.
you.
I think I listened to it 3 times that evening, and then one of the guys that were with us, Michael Harper, I said, you got to listen to this, and wow.
Pretty beautiful. And it started out as just a little idea, literally about 8 weeks ago, because I had a call from this lovely woman who was going to be my BFF, and her name is Victoria Shaw. She leaves a message on my machine at work and says essentially that, hey, I'm a songwriter. A friend of mine had breast cancer, and I'm a Grammy-winning songwriter, and a friend of mine had breast cancer, and a couple of us got together and wrote this song, and we don't want it just to be a song. We want to bring it to life, and we want it to help people. And I can get some talent, and we could work on this together, and give me a call. So I called her back, and through friends of mine, we got Dolly. Through friends of hers, we got the rest of the crew, and through her. And it was, pretty incredible that it all took off. And then she produced. Gave their time and talents for this.
Yeah, so a couple ways, for the group here, Paula, is again, you can go to Komen.org to give. You can go download this. No?
Download the song if you can.
Just
Yeah, that we get a percentage of every download. We're number 11 on the country list of downloads right now. So, send it around to everyone else. You can look it up and find it on the press release in pink. It's called Pink.
Yep. Yep. We'll be pushing it on all of our social media sites, as well. We want to make sure we download it as much as we can and get it out there going. Paula, so to close, Paula, what can we do? What can our audience, what can our system do to help you, your team, and Susan G. Komen as a whole?
Well, first and foremost, you got to take care of your own personal health. Go get your scans, go get your mammograms, tell everyone tell your mother, your sister, whatever it is, that it's time. Don't forget it, because, that gives us less work. And then the second part is, there's only one thing that's going to cure cancer, and that's cash. So any donations are gratefully accepted. Download the song, do your part there, share the song with everyone you can possibly think of. It's really a beautiful song. And then if there's opportunities to advocate, if you want to get involved in our advocacy, if you want to get involved in volunteering, there's ways to do that online. You go to Komen.org. And then if you know someone who's going through it, you go to Komen.org and call our helpline. We're here to help. Nobody should go through this alone.
Yeah, I realized, we had a very dear friend of ours in our journey at Walmart that went through it. And I remember being able to just say, hey, call this number, right? That will help you with everything you can. Well, Paula, I was very fortunate and some of the travel I have been able to do to see you and socially distance and have a wonderful lunch with you a few weeks ago. It was so good to be with you, and so good to have you on this. And thank you for everything you're doing to change the world in this space, and with your team. Have a great weekend. And thank you to everybody on here. Our next one will be with Rich Lewising from it'll be called Mission Mustache, Changing the Face of Charity. We're on this little talk about charity here. So, and we'll be talking about Movember in our next one. So Paula, again, thank you to everyone on here for supporting us. And again, go tell your friends about this and go download Pink now. Send it out to all your friends. because that will help change the world of many women. So Paula, I love you, and we will talk very, very, very soon.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.